Good morning. Welcome to your Thursday morning, early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum here with my practical rebels, ready to shift some things, move into a higher energy plane. And we have a card today from a deck we haven't seen in a bit. It's the Power of Surrender deck by Dr. Judith Orloff. And the subtitle is a 52 card deck to transform your life by letting go. Good morning, Renee. Glad you are here. Today we are letting go. Power of Surrender deck. So let's just take some nice deep breaths, breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. Good morning, Peggy. Good morning to the other two of you who have popped on, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Relaxing, releasing, just settling in, ready to receive. And today is an interesting day. I have a conversation I'm going to have. Good morning, Mel. Glad you are here. Good morning, Carolyn. Welcome. I'm having a conversation at 11 o'clock Central Time with my friend Linda Golick, who is she hosts the Bell and Health Mental Health Moments little podcast thing. Good morning, Cindy. Welcome, welcome. And so I'm going to be doing that today. We're going to be talking about addiction, and I think I'm going to. They've done several on addiction, and so they've hit the more classic views of addiction. So I'm hoping I can add a few cents worth into looking at some other things in ways that most of us don't. The kind of like my "what are we pretending not to know" thing. You know, okay, so you're on Facebook 12 hours a day. What are you pretending not to know? Avoiding a little bit of your own life there. So, again, we'll see what comes of that. But if any of you have ever done the Bell and Health Mental Health Moment, I will be on there today. Our Power of Surrender card for today. I love the title. The image, I'm just kind of shaking my head like, why did you put that there? But whatever. They picked what they picked. Surrender to effortlessness. Surrender to effortlessness. And in my mind, that's about stepping into flow, not making everything so darn hard. Good morning, Linda. And we're good at that. We kind of even get into, flowing river. We kind of even get into a little addictive thing with how hard can we make our lives, right? If we can step back, do our curious observer. Step into your curious observer right now. Step back from your life. Ask yourself the question, where am I making things harder than they need to be? Good morning, Susan. Welcome. For me, one often is overthinking things. Well, is this right? Is this the best path? What about this? Breathe. Breathe. Be in flow. Imagine the flow. Step into the flow. Float in the flow. All right? So let's stop making life harder than it has to be. All right? So we're surrendering to effortlessness. So as you continue to flow with your breath right now, that's all I want you focusing on is just your breath, allowing it to become more deep, easier, feeling an appreciation for reaching the height of the inhale, letting it all flow out, enjoying the depth of the exhale, really being present for your breath. And you might say, well, what a colossal waste of time that is. Nope, that's the most important thing there is. Because literally, if you don't have breath, you don't have anything. You're kicking up daisies at that point. So appreciate the breath. Flow with the breath. Good morning, good morning. Another rainy day. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. That's awesome. Good morning, Lucy. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. We're supposed to get 5.75 inches of snow. We're having a rummage sale tomorrow. I'm really hoping it skirts around us a bit. I'm setting an intention. If not, we'll be blowing snow at 5 in the morning. But whatever, it all is going to unfold as it's meant to. So here, in the interest of effortlessness, I want you to hear these words. Really tune in. Good morning, Deb. And again, the 9 of you that are on here, 10 of you, live, and those of you who watch after the fact. Usually by the end of the day, we're roughly at 100 people who've watched. this idea of effortlessness is really important. Yes, happy birthday, Renee. That is awesome. I'm glad we get to share part of your birthday with you. That is cool. So, breathe. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Just be and hear these words. Hear these words with your literal ears. Hear these words with your intuitive ears. Stop pushing so hard. Stop pushing so hard. The art of living means going with the flow instead of trying to force the river. The art of living means going with the flow instead of trying to force the river. So if we have rain, we flow with the rain. If we have snow, we flow with the snow. If someone throws a wrench into our plans, we flow with that wrench. Good morning, Susie. Welcome, welcome. However things are meant to unfold, they unfold. And again, that doesn't mean that we're capitulating to everything. It means we acknowledge it, we flow. Think about water. If we drop a big boulder into the middle of the river, what happens? The water flows around it. The water finds a way. The water finds a way. We can find a way too. And it doesn't always have to be. We've been highly trained to do resistance, to do fight, to do war, right? That's what we've been trained how to do. Now we're developing all new skills. Let me flow around. Let me flow over. Let me dig under. Let me wait a bit and see if this thing moves on and I can just keep going. Tons of other options. Tons of other options. And notice if there's a part of you that wants to denigrate those other options. I'm just going to sit here and wait. How stupid is this? Blah, blah, blah. No. It's just we've been so steeped in that war model, the fight, fight, fight model, that when another kinder, gentler model comes up, we sort of look askance at it. We don't trust it, etc. Being in that flow, letting go of the push. So I want you to think about where are some areas in your life right now that you're doing this. And it might be hugely shoving. Yes, flow, flow, flow your boat gently down the life stream. Absolutely. Allow, allow, allow. Where are you pushing? And it could be big pushes. It can also be just a little bit of resistance. Let's tune into those today. The little bit of resistance. Where do you tend to put up a little bit of resistance? Notice that. Notice that. See what you can do to breathe your way through that resistance. Understand where it's coming from. Why is that perking up right now? Okay, because this other person's trying to run my show. That's why this is coming up. I can step back into my sovereignty. I get to run my life. I get to make my choices. No one else gets to control my thoughts or feelings. I control that. I get to decide what I want to do in a particular situation. I can go with where they're shoving, or I can decide to take a different path. I have choices. I have choices. I always have choices. I think about Nelson Mandela, all those decades in prison, but he had mind management. He chose how he wanted to view that time and what he wanted to do with it, and then who he was going to be once he was released from prison. I mean, that is just to me a phenomenal example of someone exercising that mind management. Get to make choices, get to flow with what is. Despite the fact that I've been locked up, I can still flow with what is. I can utilize this time for my highest and best good, all right? So we're surrendering to effortlessness. We don't have to push and shove and fight and claw and scratch and buck the tide and all that stuff. We don't have to do that anymore. I think that's something that a lot of people tend to figure out as they get older. They've banged their head against the wall enough to be bloody. And now we're going to step into a little more grace. Step into a little more grace, all right? So let's say something not so pleasant unfolds in your world. You have a car accident, someone passes away, you lose your job, someone at work is making your job not pleasant, etc., etc., etc. How do you stay in grace? How do you stay in grace despite that? Can you even look at that as holding lessons for you? Here's another opportunity for me to practice my skills, to practice not getting dragged down the black hole of fighting about whatever it is, but looking for what are my options here? How do I flow around this? How do I flow over this? How do I wait enough until that moves on and I can continue on my path? How do I do this? Breathing into it, breathing into it. Surrender to effortlessness. Stop pushing so hard. Here's my favorite sentence out of this whole thing. The art of living means going with the flow instead of trying to force the river. Going with the flow instead of trying to force the river. And I've talked often, yes, it is a great card. It's a fabulous card. I've talked often about Byron Katie and the work, capital T, capital W, that she does. Her book, one of her books, is Loving What Is. And the whole gist of it is this, stepping into flow. She had this life-altering event that changed her mind such that she could no longer fight things, resist things, get upset about things. Good morning, Cheryl. And some major things then happened in her life about which she felt curiosity, even joy. So, for example, one of them was she came home from a speaking tour and someone had broken into her home and cleaned out everything. Cleaned out everything. Now, most of us would get really upset about that. She actually felt joy. She felt joy, feeling like all of her things were no longer her things. They were meant to move on to other people. And this was kind of an interesting way for that to occur. But she framed it as those things were meant to move on. I'm meant to now have other things. Very different framework. Very different framework. But look at the outcomes. Very different outcomes also. She's not going to be flustered, upset, ruminating, angry, hostile, any of that stuff. She's just going to be flowing with what is. Flowing with what is. That is kind of a far end of the continuum thing. If we can even move ourselves one or two notches down that continuum toward accepting what is, allowing what is, being with what is, if we can let go of the words, it shouldn't be that way, we are going to be so much further along the path. So much further along the path. It sounds cliche. It is what it is. But actually, when you dig to the depths of that, when you mine that phrase, it is what it is, it holds great power. It holds great power for us, right? So that's what we're going to practice today, allowing what is. I have a cube mate that drives me crazy by playing music all day. It is what it is. I have a nasty commute to work every day. It is what it is. When we stop fighting what is, it also paradoxically opens the door for change to occur. That cube mate might get a promotion and moves out of that cube. The commute, people may decide to take surface roads instead of that road you're taking, and maybe it frees up. Something may change when you change. It may not, but the changes you've made are still going to allow that to be more acceptable to you than it has been when you're resisting and fighting and saying it shouldn't be this way. So that's what we're going to practice today. That effortlessness, that flow of what is, not bucking the system. The title of the book, it's Byron Katie, Loving What Is. It's an older book, and I'm going to suggest to you, it's repetitive. Part of the reason it's repetitive is because we need help sinking that in. The more opportunities we have to work with the material, here's another story about it. Here's another story about it. I mean, we see that in the book we've been working our way through to write. She offers several vignettes about a particular concept because she wants it to resonate for us. She wants it to sink in. Good morning, CJ. Glad you are here. I was on a preparatory Zoom yesterday for the Tony Robbins 4-day Unleash Your Power that I'm doing next week, and several people in the feed. I mean, there were 8,700 people on this Zoom call. That's mind-boggling. That is mind-boggling, right? But that's just such a cool thing to conceive of. Right here, that we've got 14 of you and me. Think about that, 8,700 people. And there's actually 30,000 people signed up for the class. 30,000 people. It's just amazing to try to wrap my brain around that. How cool is that? So anyway, there were several people in the feed. You could see the chat menu rolling past, complaining about the repetition. That we'd done some previous work, we'd had a previous class, the amount of repetition. But again, and several people said this, people who were veterans of this program. There were some people who've done this thing 14, 15 times already. This will be my first time. But they were repeating that concept of, we're kind of lunk-headed. When we've worn the grooves in our brain really deeply another way, it's going to take some repetition to get us moving in a different groove. We're trying to release the groove of it shouldn't be this way and step into the allowing the flow. It is what it is. So we need repetition to make that happen. You may write it on a 3x5 card. Go with the flow. Or this, the art of living means going with the flow instead of trying to force the river. Remember, we talked about that a couple of days ago when we had the native spirit card, where the old saw was, it's best to ride the horse in the direction that it's going. Again, don't fight the flow. So that's what we're practicing. That's what we're going to be practicing repeatedly. We can do this. We can do this. We're good at this, right? Remember learning to whistle when you were a little kid. You sat on the porch and you went until it finally made a sound. We're going to do that again. We are practicing the repetition over and over and over. If you're a piano player, how many times did you play the scales up and down over and over and over? If you're a voice person, how many times do you do the voice exercises before you actually go into singing the songs, right? This is such a process. Yes, repetition, repetition, repetition. And in how many subtle different ways do we need to hear something before we go, oh, I get this now? I'll tell you one of mine. There was an old joke. How do you get down off an elephant? You don't get down off an elephant, you get down off a duck. I never understood that as a kid. It made no sense to me whatsoever. I think I was like 15 when it finally dawned on me. There's a different definition of down. Down is the fuzzy stuff, not getting down off of. Aha! We all get the opportunities to have the ahas, and the repetition is oftentimes what gets us to the ahas. So we're going to repeat, repeat, repeat. Lather, rinse, repeat. Effortlessness. Stop pushing so hard. The art of living means going with the flow instead of trying to force the river. This is what we're doing today. Have an awesome time practicing. We'll see you again tomorrow. If you can make it for the mental health moment today, that would be great. Remember, you are capable of far more than you think you are. See you tomorrow. Bye.